Glad you're back. I hope you had a nice hour off, got a little food in your stomach, a little walk around the block, and again, thanks for joining me this afternoon. If you missed this morning, it will be available. We are recording it. It was on scheduling, treatment planning, and how to retain and hire quality staff members. So if you missed that, be sure and register later so that you can get that information. This afternoon, we're going to be covering financial arrangements, and we're also going over internal marketing and asking for referrals. As a reminder, we're open to chats, so please send your chats, and during the breaks, I'll be able to take a look at those and answer those for you. And let me see here, we got there's chat one, good. Okay, and we will take a break in about 45 minutes to an hour. So we'll take another 20-minute break so that you can take care of some other business before we end up for today. So let's talk a little bit about strategy 4, which is financial arrangements. Again, with what's going on with the COVID-19, and us getting back to practice, it's probably going to change the way we do financial arrangements for our patients. In the past, in the most recent past, most of our financial arrangements were that we had a treatment plan for the patient, that we talked to the patient one-on-one about what their needs were. We took into account what their insurance was going to pay and their deductible, and we typically made financial arrangements on the patient balance. As a rule, we were trying to collect the patient's portion before the first appointment. So let's say we had a $5,000 treatment plan, and we found out the patient's portion was going to be, let's call it $2,500. What we would have done in the past is taken that $2,500 and made arrangements for that to be paid at least a week in advance of them starting treatment. So it goes back to that old adage I said earlier today, which is that dentures fit better when they're paid for. Patients show up for their appointments and accept the treatment better when it is paid for. In any scenario, having a patient pay as they go or pay after the treatment done, it doesn't make good business sense. So to give you an example, I recently got a new pair of glasses. When I ordered my new glasses, they wanted me to pay for the total fee, the glasses, in advance. When I asked them if there were other arrangements available, they said, yes, we can take a 50% initial investment. I thought, oh, that was good. Initial investment, not deposit. So I put $300 down, and then when my glasses came in, boy, I was over in that office within a couple of hours to pick it up because I'd already put $300 down. So if it makes sense, in the past, we were less flexible because we were a little more flush of the financial arrangements we did with our patients. Those same things are going to apply now, but I'll show you where the flexibility is going to come into play. We can anticipate, I'm guessing we're going to have to be a little more flexible with our financial arrangements and how much time we give patients to pay for the treatment. We're going to have to be able to bank a little bit more in the accounts receivable, have really good systems in place so that we can collect the money and stay on target. We don't want to get into accounts receivable problems at this point, especially been cleaning it up. By the way, during this time period, if you probably already recognize having someone either remote in or work in your office, they should be working on those insurance-related accounts receivable problems. What my experience has been, if we have something in the AR related to insurance, it took, gosh, anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes for each claim to kind of try to problem solve and find out what's going on. So if you're not already jumping onto that part of your accounts receivable, I'd encourage you to do that. And again, doctors, if you're working from home, the days you're working at home, what a great opportunity to start pulling and learning more about your accounts receivable. I find most of the time our doctors are not aware of the total accounts receivable, who's in there, and what it's in there for. It helps for accountability if our doctors are looking at the report at the same time our office managers and front desk people do. So this would be a good time to do a remote in or tutorial training on your software because you're going to be needing to depend on that cash flow for several months to be able to keep running your business the way you want to. So doctors, great opportunity to learn more about that and see on there. What I venture to say you're going to find on that accounts receivable is some of your family and friends that you are unaware owed you so much money. You will also find patients on there that you've come in early in the morning, had an emergency patient to see them, and then you see on here they owe you $2,000. So good time overall to get a handle on the accounts receivable, look at the insurance as well as your patients. Now, I'm not recommending you start making accounts receivable phone calls to our patients since they're home. I think we've got to be a little more graceful than that and give our patients some grace that we're not really bugging them or setting up new financial arrangements. Definitely we don't let them off the hook, but I think we've got to, this is probably not the right time to be making collection calls. So let's go through some of the win-win financial arrangements. And by the way, what win-win means is it's a win for the practice and it's a win for the patient, okay? It's keeping our receivables healthy so we can keep our doors open. So let's look at a little bit of this. First of all, we need to establish goals. Our first goals that you need to share with your team is, number one, we want to be collecting 98% of adjusted production. So what is the difference between gross production and adjusted production? I think most of us know the answer to that, but maybe some of the team who doesn't. So let's say we charge $1,500 for a crown, and either Delta, Aetna, whatever insurance company we're dealing with is going to be paying us $800. The gross production is $1,500. We're having to write off $700 because we are a participating member with a PPO or insurance, Delta. That is adjusted production. So doctors, when you look at your reports, we want to be running a report of what is gross production and what is adjusted production or net production. And you should be always comparing that 98% to the adjusted production. And you can do that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but I'm really looking at a 3-month average to be 98%. So that's one of your goals too, and you should be reviewing that in your morning meetings with your, not morning meetings, but your monthly staff meetings with your team, is being able to understand that difference in what our collections are. The other 2% that we're not collecting is actually write off bad debt or patients who are, have not paid their debt. It could be bad debts or write-offs that we need to do. So that's our first goal, 98% of adjusted production. Number 2 is your accounts receivable should be equal to 1 month of adjusted production. So let's take our last month we were in practice. Let's call it February, where we had a full month in our practice. I would take February's production, adjusted production. So let's say you did 50,000, but the adjusted production was 40,000. Your accounts receivable at that time, at the end of February, should have been $40,000, if that makes sense. So it should be 1 and 1. So it should be, if I adjusted production were 50, my accounts receivable should be 50. So that is standard, is 1-on-1. If you're a specialist, it's entirely different. Let's talk about if you're a prosthodontist, periodontist, oral surgeon, pediatric nurse, it's going to be less than half a month's production because you're collecting more of that money up front. If you're an orthodontist, of course, you have a whole different accounts receivable kind of reporting. It's a different way that works. So doctors, go to your remote reports, find out what your AR is now, find out how much is over 90 days, find out if it was equal to your adjusted production. That will tell you the health of your business before you even started that. So we might as well start with what already happened in your practice and how healthy it was before we go forward. Now, the third part of this is your AR collections over 90 days is less than 20%. So when I pull that AR report, and it's going to go current, 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. When I'm looking at 0 to 30, it should be less than 20%. All right, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Over 90 days, so you look at that report, current, 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. The over 90 days since you've done treatment should be less than 20%. So you want to make sure you're starting from a place of health, that this is already in a healthy position. So In good times, bad times, in uncertain times, these goals always match. But what we've got to do is make sure a little more flexible on how this happens. By the way, this is a perfect time also to review any of the reduced fee plans that you're on, any PPOs that you are currently on. What a great time to look at that fee schedule compared to your UCR or usual, customary, and reasonable to see, are there some plans this next year we need to get off of? If when we're back up and running, what are some ones that pick the lowest hanging fruit? Let's pick it off the tree and get rid of it. And so I don't take on the big people at this point to drop off of, but I certainly take the lesser ones. This is a good time to renegotiate for fees. Now, we can't renegotiate our insurance reimbursements with the big companies, our Deltas, Blue Cross Blue Shield, but there are certainly several smaller PPOs that, given some time, and we've got time now, that we can start the renegotiation process. I think they're going to be very flexible. There's even some insurance companies that are fronting the money ahead of time to help your accounts receivable. So spend some time on this system of your office. Remember, what we talked about from the very beginning is this is our opportunity to put systems in place that we know work. We almost get a restart, almost like you're starting from day one a new business and you're implementing new policies and procedures in your office. I would certainly take that opportunity with your accounts receivable. Because again, we're going to be needing this to live on for the next several months. So here are some keys that really work, okay? Oh, good question I have from Candy. Who do you recommend for PPO negotiation? I personally like to use Unlock the PPO. They have a website. So again, Unlock the PPO. They're based here in Colorado. I've had many doctors use them. It's, I don't want to quote their fees, but it did come out in the wash. They looked at your whole they looked at your demographics of your office. They looked at the kind of pool of patients you have, what insurance they have, and they will tell you what insurance you should belong to, what PPOs you should belong to, and also which ones you should consider adjusting off. And they also do the negotiations for you too, which I love that. I don't know about the rest of you, but negotiating insurance fees is it's very hard. They're a cash business, we're in a cash business, and that negotiation, you have to be really good at negotiation. When I have done it in the past, I did find there were several different fee schedules for the same procedures. So when I did it, it was for a pediatric practice, and it was a new practice. I submitted the fees to this insurance company, I asked them for a fee schedule. They faxed it over, so that was a long time ago, faxed it over. I looked at it, and I told them that the doctors were starting out. They just have a new practice. Is there any way we had a little wiggle room with the fees? Next thing I know, I get another fax with different fees on them, and they were higher, and we went one more round. And it really was the difference between $25 for a Child Pro all the way up to $50 for a Child Pro. And so we did 3 different rounds and got it. I think that they're on to us now, and they may not be as generous with the negotiation, but what do we have to lose at this point? We have time. They want our business. We don't know what it's going to look like down the road. Why not try to negotiate this? So, good question. I use Unlock the PPO. Let me see if there's another chat in that related to that before we go forward. Okay. Okay, good. Got that. All righty. All right. The first part of this in improving our cash flow, because we do have to worry about cash flow for the next couple of months in our practice, is, again, go back to the very beginning of how we should have been doing it or should be doing it, and that is that the patient should receive a treatment plan. Because you don't know who the buyer is, and it may be their husband, it may be their wife, it may be a parent. I love for my patients to walk out with a detailed treatment plan. Now, I don't want them to use it as a tool to go shop at other practices, but I do think they need to be aware of what it's going to take to get into a healthy position in our office. What is the total fee, including the insurance portion that we're estimating. I know they think we promise them how much their insurance will cover, but we all know it's just a guesstimate. And again, that's a good reminder for our team when they meet with our patients to let them know it's our best guesstimate to do that. So they get a treatment plan, they sign the treatment plan, not signing that they're going to necessarily follow through with it, they're signing that they understand and they are going to receive it. Again, as we discussed before lunch today, you may have a couple of treatment plans for your patients based on their budget and on their timing, and that's perfectly fine. Again, I want you to present the ideal treatment plan, but be willing to negotiate or phase it out as necessary. But I'd like for them to have something to take home. It makes it a little clearer for what they're getting into and also how they're going to pay for it. We would all want the same thing. All right. The second one is, and doctors, I know you're uncomfortable with this one, but I want you to be prepared to discuss fees. And I know that is like, oh, I hate to talk about money with my patients. I don't want them to get confused between treatment, that I'm a care provider, and then I talk about money. Those really are two different things. The way I want you to be able to discuss fees is if a patient asks you about them. So if I came to your office and I have several crowns that are broken down, I need to have new crowns, possibly implants put in place, I as a patient have been establishing trust with you. I've had a new patient exam with you. You've given me a treatment plan. I want you to be comfortable and ready to tell me what this is going to cost. I want you to be able to say, Amy, you asked me around how much this is going to cost. Say, that's really, I would want you to say, this is Tracy's job at the front desk. She's an expert in dealing with insurance and patients' financing options. But what I want to tell you is it looks like it's going to be around $9,000. And then you pause. I did not say $9,000. I did not say, oh, 9,000 and look away. I just say, you know what, my best guesstimate, it's going to be around 9,000, all right? Now, most of your patients are going to be shocked by that. That's a lot of money actually for any of us, especially now. But to be able to say at that point, remember we're going to be listen and silent with that patient and say, it sounds like you weren't expecting it to cost that much. In other words, your job's not to talk about financial arrangements. I want you to be comfortable presenting the fee. I want you to become more comfortable in handling the objection that comes your way. So when they say, do I really need it? You're going to say, well, my job is to tell you what you need and to tell you what would happen if you didn't do it. It's up to you to decide when you're going to do it and how you're going to take care of it. I would love for you to do that verbal skill of, if you were my sister or my son, I would tell you to get this done within the next 3 to 6 months. But that was if you were a family member. The ball is totally in your court. So I ask, as a matter of fact, now when I see doctors, specialists, dentists, any physician for myself, my family, my mom, I always pose the question of, what would you do if this was your mom? What would you do if I was your sister? I love it. I love for you to give that analogy to the patients because it makes you more real to them and it sets some parameters of when to have it done. I think your patients are looking for you to handle their objections. Now, certainly if they start saying, well, what does my insurance cover? And I don't have a job, and I don't know how much my monthly payment is. I don't know if I have care credit. You definitely say, you know, I don't know the answer to those questions either, and that's why we have Tracy. And let me walk you to the front to Tracy. I'll have you meet with her in the conference room, and you guys can go over this together. Now, remember, if this is a $9,000 treatment plan, I hope you're not presenting that at the chair at the hygiene visit and completely surprising them. This is obviously a situation of a new patient exam or a re-exam on a patient that has come back in and you are presenting the treatment to them. It could be a separate consultation, could be in front of the hygiene visit. But this, I'm not catching the patient off guard so that they'll be blown away by this. If you do it that way, where you are going to present a larger treatment plan to a patient, if Tracy is in on it from the morning huddle or the day before, she can actually sit in the treatment room or the consultation room with you, and you're presenting a treatment so you can exit stage left. The worst case scenario is you present the treatment and you go up to the front and you give her a routing slip and print a treatment plan and say, Tracy will be able to cover this all for you now. If Tracy's answering the phone, other staff members are coming to the front desk, the phone is ringing, she's not going to be able to give it her best attention. You really want to use this as a one-on-one opportunity between Tracy and the patient to be able to close that deal. So when we go back to this slide, be prepared to discuss fees. I want you to be prepared to present a fee, to tell them how much it's going to be, and in broad terms. I think it's a little suspicious when two things happen. I think it's suspicious when I ask a doctor how much something's going to cost and they say, oh, no, I don't do that. You'll have to talk with my office manager about that. That makes me think like, oh my gosh, he is afraid to tell me how much this is going to cost, okay? He's afraid to tell, he's embarrassed because he knows it's a lot of money. And then poor Tracy at the front desk has to be able to handle those objections, and she may not have been on the discussion. So let your front office person be successful by cluing her in of what's going to be happening next. The second scenario, I think, is discussing fees is when she hasn't had a time to prepare. And my front office people right now are going, yes, that's so true. I'm at the front, it's slammed, and all we do is drop off the patient and a routing slip, and I don't know anything, much less they haven't even completed the treatment plan. How are we to be effective at presenting fees if we don't have the information to do that properly? So we need a heads up. I always like the back office to walk to the front office or message them, say, hey, patient A is coming up in 10 minutes. Please look at the treatment plan. I think they have Delta. It looks like they have some concerns. Let her get a chance, he or she get a chance to be prepared for this discussion. Again, it should happen in a private setting. I will agree to anything if it's in front of everyone else. I'll especially agree with the doctor because I don't want them to know I'm having financial problems. So if you tell me it's $9,000, I'd probably go, oh, that's, no big deal. And inside I'm going like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I'm going to pay rent this much. How am I going to pay for $9,000 worth of treatment? They're going to act really cool in front of the doctor. So if you can have a private place after you present treatment for that financial administrator to be able to deal with that, it's going to make it much more successful for everyone. Okay, we have a couple chats. Let's look here. Do you ever consider well, let me go back one. My program software does not show the adjusted production. It shows true production and collections only. So I would tell you, all software systems do show gross production, adjusted production. They just may call it different things. So I would contact your provider of your software system, Dentrix, EagleSoft, Open Dental, PracticeWorks, SoftDent, any of those, and ask them where that is. This is a good downtime activity to find because it's in an adjustment column. So it may not say gross production and adjusted production, but I guarantee you that it's there. Now, I have one related to that. I have one doctor, he did not want to see his gross production. He said, Amy, I don't care what gross is. I just want to deal with real numbers. And real numbers to me are adjusted production and collection. And I said, I totally get where you're coming from because it makes sense that that's either a fake number, that gross number. I said, but so much is based on that gross production. All your overhead percentages industry-wide are set on gross production. Your staffing is, your dental supplies. I said, so I know that number is depressing to look at because you're like, oh my gosh, I wrote off $15,000 last month. I know it's depressing to look at, but you have to look at it as a business person. You can't just look at the net and the collection, if that makes sense. Okay, here's another question. Do you ever consider any discounts for payment in advance? I did in the past, but it seemed like you were giving discounts to people that were going to pay anyway. Yeah, good question, Brad. You know, I think most people these days are offering if you don't have insurance, because if insurance is involved, it changes offering a discount or a savings. I do have people offering a 5 to 10% savings for treatment paid in advance, but it has to be paid in advance, and it has to be on the total treatment plan, not patient portion. If insurance is involved, then it means that you've got to notify the insurance company that this patient has received a 5 to 10% savings. So how you get around this is I only offer that in those negotiations. Remember Tracy that was with that $9,000 treatment plan? I have given Tracy permission to offer a 10% savings if the patient pays for all of it in advance. Not just next appointment, not just phase treatment, but she has the skills and I've empowered her to give 10% off. If I can get a check for $8,200 a week to 2 before we start treatment, that is a win-win. Again, if you have insurance, you have to let them know that patient has received that, else it's considered insurance. I don't know if it's insurance fraud, but yeah, you don't want that to happen. You don't want an audit and for that to come out that they didn't receive the same discount that a patient did. The other thing that I would say is I never offer a savings, and I'll change the word from discount to savings. I will offer my patient a 10% 5 to 10% savings if they pay in advance, but I only do it for $1,000 or more. So in other words, don't do it for cleanings, they're gonna pay anyway. Don't do it for anything, really anything under $1,000. Most patients are gonna be able to pay for that, or at least they used to. We don't know now what it's gonna be. So make it $1,000 or more and they receive a discount. I recently, it was interesting, I went through a sleep study recently and I don't know how kosher or legal it was, but there was the fee if we went through insurance, and then there was the fee if it was self-pay. Well, like all of you have got a high deductible and HSA, and I just went, oh, I'm gonna self-pay because it was literally 30% less than if it went through insurance. How sad is that? No wonder our insurance is so high. We can't do that in dentistry. We can't go around the insurance, or I wouldn't recommend going around it. If you're a fee for service and the patients are being paid 100% by their insurance company and not you, I think you've got wiggle room. But if you are in a PPO or a reduced fee program, then it's going to be a little harder to do that and probably not recommended. So $1,000 or more, 5 to 10%. You can call it senior citizen savings, but it all has to be paid in advance. So good question, very good. Okay, let's go on to what it's going to look like. Your financial administrator and you also need to be prepared to present Care Credit or Green Sky or whatever financing you use to offer more lenient arrangements. So, and part of financial arrangements, this would be a great study for your front office people or office manager, is to learn the art of negotiations. There's a lot of, through practice management software and verbal skills, there's a lot of opportunities to learn how to negotiate. Most of us in dentistry, we're horrible salespeople. We're great helpers, but we're horrible salespeople. And we need to get better at the negotiation part of it. We'd probably starve to death if we were in negotiations. So, but my front office needs to be able to learn the skills of, Amy, this treatment is going to be actually it's going to be $8,922. By the way, your financial administrator should always come in less than what your quoted fee is. So doctors always quote high. Always say it's going to be around $9,000 and let her come in a little bit lower. She's going to pause with that verbal skill and say that will be $8,922. She pauses and the patient will typically say, wow, that's a lot of money. She will say, well, yes, it is a lot of money. How would you like to take care of it? Patient goes, you want me to pay for all this at one time? You say, well, it's certainly one of our options. And she pauses. And the patient says, I don't know, do you have any financial arrangements? Well, yes, we do. I can divide that into 2 payments, or 3. So she is negotiating her way down the ladder of how this is going to be paid for. She started with all of it, then she's going to collecting it in 2 payments, then she's going to 3 payments, and now she's going to go to Care Credit. So she's got to learn kind of, it's a ladder of where I go and what my bottom line is. You as the doctor have to decide what is your bottom level. How many months will you extend financial arrangements? How much do you want to use Care Credit or Green Sky? And what is the dollar amount, I mean the month limit that you want? Are you going to offer it for 6 months or 12 months? All right? So this is a great time for your front office to learn how to negotiate for treatment and for payment. Years ago, I was in Nebraska, and it's a farming community in Nebraska, and I looked at their receivables, and they were just like gigantic. And it was because of the nicest doctor in the universe was working there. And not only was he nice, so was his office manager. So I saw a patient come in. He was a farmer and his wife, and she needed dentures. And at that time, they were going to be $4,000 for this denture case. And I saw the farmer say, wow, that's a lot of money to spend on my wife, which was kind of rude to say anyway, but he said it. And I saw the office manager just like melt down, where she went, oh, well, yeah, it is a lot of money, but we can break it into payments. And he goes, I don't know, that is a lot of money for dentures. I don't know. She goes, well, we can break it into 6 equal payments or 12. And the next thing I know is this patient was getting the dentures. Her husband didn't object to her getting them. He knew she needed and wanted them. He's just saying it's a lot of money. But she melted under the pressure, and the next thing I know is we've got dentures on the book that are going to be paid for in 12 months. Well, that is never, just extend a payment out that far unless you're an ortho, you're taking a chance, because anything that goes beyond 90 days is going to be difficult. So learning the art of asking for money and knowing when to fold them and when to negotiate. Now, all of you have patients in your practice right now that you've extended, you're not even charging them the right fee. They're elderly, they're a widow, they're a charity case, whatever it is. I'm not talking about those patients. We all have those special patients that we treat as a charity case. I'm talking about your bread and butter regular patients trying to keep it in within 90 days. So second part of this is, and I think most of you are doing it, but occasionally I run into practices that are not. You should be billing really billing every single day. If you saw me today for a broken tooth and you restored it, you put a pin in it, we've got a temp going, you should be charging me out today for that, not waiting till your next billing cycle. So sending out statements every day. At a minimum, you should be billing a minimum of 4 times a month. Now, I don't mean that a patient is getting a bill 4 times a month. I'm meaning that the practice is generating cash flow 4 times a month. So call it every Tuesday, call it every Wednesday, whatever you want to do. Every week, and again, preferably every day, I am sending out statements to help the cash flow. Some of you remember, it's been a long time, but for some of us that have been in dentistry over 25 years, we would bill only once a month. We would usually bill on the last day of the month. It would take us a day and a half because we'd have to print the statements, we'd have to fold them and mail them out, and then guarantee you on that following Monday we get 1 million phone calls from patients saying, did my insurance pay? Should I be paying? So reduce that kind of workload by doing it constantly. Now, I'll tell you, credit card companies bill every 21 days. We're stuck on, if you do every 28, that's fine, but it shouldn't go any more than that. I should get a statement from your office every 28 days. What day I receive it is up to you. You may do, A through G the first week of the month, H through M the second week, but make sure that you have constant cash flow that is coming through the practice by breaking it up. So again, is this a good time to implement that takeaway? Yeah, it could be a good time to go ahead and change that. This is another good time to do that is if you're not already charging interest. I'm still surprised how many practices are not charging our patients 1.5 APR per month for outstanding balances. Where else does this happen? Our cars, our houses, our rent, every single bill we have charges interest for overdue amounts. We've become too lenient in dentistry, and our patients we're going to the bottom of the list to get paid. So yeah, is this the best time if you haven't charged interest to start charging it? I think, again, that's not being graceful or flexible with our patients during this tough fiscal time for them and us, but I would certainly put it in the plan for next year of when am I going to start charging interest. You have to let them know, because of the Federal Truth in Lending Act, that you have to let patients know you are going to be offering or you are going to be charging interest. I only charge it after 90 days, okay? So after 90 days is when I do it. I give time for insurance, I get time for patients to pay before I actually start charging it. And as you can see at the bottom of this slide, be ready to waive interest. See, if I'm Tracy at the front desk, I want to have your blessing that if a patient says, well, I'll tell you what, I hate this interest, I can't believe you charged it for me, I want her to be prepared to be able to say, you know what, I tell you what I can do. I can go ahead and write off this interest if you're willing to take care of your bill today. And she takes a credit card, whatever she does to get that patient to pay. Yeah, I know there's credit card charges, but I want that bill taken care of. So give her some flexibility to write off any interest if the patients are bitching and moaning about it. That's okay to do that. Okay. Next one, start your in-house collection letters quick. So if your patients have fallen into the 90-day category without returning your phone call, without making a payment, we got to start our own process. And it's already built into all of your software systems, I have to tell you. You have letters in there, I can send you letters, but why not have you get the collections going before you send them over to a collection agency? By the time you get them to a collection agency, it is really hard for them to collect it, and you're paying 50% for them to be able to do that. So let's start it on our end before we get to that point and watching it very closely. So again, doctors, that's you and your office manager or front desk working together. Every month you're looking at that receivables together and say, okay, what are we doing with this patient? What payment plan are they on? What are we going to do for them? She will know more information, but you've got to be in tune with what that receivables looks like. Okay, we had another question here. Why is it so hard for dental practices to get paid for their work? Right? Why is it so hard? If you buy furniture or a chair or a car, they have specific guidelines, absolutely. Have dentists created this situation by being nice or not placing enough value on our services? Wow, is that ever so accurate, Brad? I think it's both. I think we've devalued it, and we have been too nice about it. It's interesting when you hire people from outside dentistry and have them come work in a dental office, they cannot, it blows their mind when a patient says, oh, I forgot my checkbook or I didn't bring my credit card. They can't believe that people would act that way. So I think a lot of it is how we've trained them. I do have practices that have, as a startup practice, started it entirely differently. Some of you inherited that from the former owner or former staff that work in the practice, and some of you have done it this way your whole career. But new dentists starting out, there was a practice in Denver, two young dentists, female, they've been in practice 7 years. And they started their practice, they were not married, now they're both married, they both have 2 kids. And they both want to work 2 days a week, all right? So they got toddlers, they're sharing one full-time practice, and they both said, you know, life is, gosh, it's really hard running a business, being a dentist, and having a family. So here's our deal. We want to be here, but when we're here, we want our practice to be full and productive. So they went totally against the grain. They started this at the beginning. No one can even schedule an appointment until they paid for it in advance. I don't care if it's a filling, a crown, an implant, certainly cosmetic dentistry. Every single patient, if it's over $500 or more, goes to the consultation room with the financial coordinator, and they go over the treatment plan and they make arrangements. But literally, those patients are paying for treatment before they even get an appointment. Wow, that is mind-blowing. Can we do this now for our patients? That's going to blow. I think that's going to be really hard. But I think we have devalued our services, and I think we have been too nice. I think we have to be able to say, it's up to you. It's up to you to decide what you're going to do. My job is to tell you what you need. You have to decide how valuable it is. And all of us know, we've been in dentistry long enough, this has nothing to do with if people have money or not. This has everything to do with how much they value it. So to me, back to the new patient exam, how important is it for you to keep your teeth? What is your budget? What is your time frame? What are you thinking about what we're going over? Letting them be more in control and you being comfortable discussing fees. So if a patient says to you, oh my gosh, $1,500 for one tooth, you're gonna go, I know. All right? I say the same thing when I go in to get my car fixed. When I get my Honda, it's time for the 35,000 mile tune-up. I'm like, oh my gosh, you kidding me? How much this is? But I get it done because it's so valuable to me. So, old adage, you always know this, that if someone really wants something, they will find a way to pay for it. And all of us have done that. You will find a way. You have had patients walk into your practice with $100 bills, $50 bills, and paid for their treatment that you did not think could ever afford that treatment at all. Okay? So yes, I think, Brad, we need to do a much better job of being proud of our work. I tell staff, tell the patient when they say, oh, that's a lot of money and there's someone else that's cheaper down the street or has lower fees, just say, you know, I don't know about that doctor's fees that is down the street or who you've been talking to. All I know is my doctor's fees are based on her care, skill, and judgment. So care, skill, and judgment. Because really, that's what you're paying for. And that's what I'm paying for in your office. I'm paying for your care, skill, and judgment. So that's a good staff meeting information to go over is, why are your fees as high as they are? No one thinks our fees are low. I don't think car fees are low. I don't think glasses are low. But I think if it's something I want, I'm going to find a way to be able to pay for it. Okay, here's another question on the chat. Do you ever consider any discounts for payment in the, okay, got that one. There was something else, there was one. Okay, let me just make sure I got all the chat. Okay, I think I got it. I think there was one earlier that said, how about patients, can they prepay? It's interesting, sometimes your patients, they think we're their bank. Sometimes they want to send us $100 a month, and when they get up to $800, we're going to let them know and they can start treatment. That's okay, but you know, obviously it's not the way we want to do business. Okay, so start your in-house letters first before you send them to collections. Number 2, calculate and collect patient portion at the time of service. If you are delaying, if you don't know that portion, all you're doing is pushing that cash into other categories. We need a front desk person that is comfortable saying, today's portion is $450 and your deductible looks like it was going to be $100, so I'll need to collect $550 today. How would you like to take care of that? And usually I'm handing them a pen at the same time. How would you like to take care of it? Are they going to write me a check? Are they going to sign a pen pad? Are they going to sign a credit card? What are we going to do to get that taken care of? You need to have a front office person that when the patient says, do you want me to pay for that now? You say, that would be great. That's what I would love. So being comfortable in our skin. Now, how many of you can remember when you're first out of dental school, and you're still driving your car you had in college, maybe high school, now you've got student loan debt, and you see your first patient, and you have to tell them how much a crown is. Anyone remember that? I can remember that. I can remember, like, when I was a consultant. I used to work for the Pride Institute a long time. My first consulting gig was with Pride. And I'll never forget, we had, I was 30 years old. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. I was driving an old car. We had just adopted a baby on a line of credit from my office. And I remember having to tell a client or a doctor how much his consulting plan was going to be. And inside, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pay for groceries tonight. I don't even know how we're going to make rent next month. And here I am telling someone else how much this fee is like blowing my mind. Did you doctors feel the same way? Did you, the first time you told a patient that it was $1,000, $1,500, $9,000, $10,000? Do you remember that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how, I don't even know how I'm going to pay my school loan this month. We have to get over that. We have to be better at the value of what's in it for the patient. What am I doing for them? What are they really paying for? They're not paying for a crown. They're paying for your care, skill, and judgment. We've got to get more comfortable with that. All right. Last part of this, improving your cash flow, is make sure you calculate and collect the patient's portion deductibles. So that means some legwork, whether it's fax back, calling the insurance company, using an outside resource to look and see what I can best do to calculate it. We got to collect as much as possible up front, especially if it's a PPO, else you're going to be chasing your tail on that. So let's improve our cash flow. The last part of improving your cash flow, and then we're going to take a break, is looking at a membership plan. And I think this came up here earlier, and more practices are doing this. It's like going to Costco. It's like belonging to a gym. It is where you get a savings by belonging to our membership. So the most famous one, or the original one, was Quality Dental Plan, QDP, was the original company that came out with, why don't we make this a membership for our patients, that instead of having them buy dental insurance, we have them buy into our membership plan. And the membership plan, I think a lot of you already have them. The membership plan is that they pay anywhere from $300 to $600 a year up front, and they get 2 cleanings, 1 set of bite wings, and 15% off all of their restorative dentistry. That is still cheaper than taking a discount from your PPOs. We know the average PPO can go up to, well, the average is about 32% of a discount or reduction in fees that you're taking. So why not take the membership fee, have them drop any insurance plan that they've been paying out of pocket for, and be able to be on the membership plan. My husband's an insurance agent, so I have been on a dental plan for years, and it costs $50 a month for this plan. Well, I have really good teeth, knock on wood, haven't needed a lot of dentistry. And I said to my husband, I don't know why we're on our insurance. We really have gone through most of our quality dentistry so far. It seems like we'd be better off being on the doctor's membership plan and get 15 and just save that money per month and apply that to if we do need dentistry. So we both went off of it when we compared what we were paying to what the membership costs. It's actually the same cost, but we're actually going to get 15% off on the dentistry. What it does to doctors and for staff is it allows people to go forward with treatment and not say, oh, I have to wait till my insurance will cover it. I can only do 1 crown a year. So look at opportunities to be in the membership, but you can't call an insurance plan. You'll get in trouble with the state board and all sorts of people. So it's got to be a membership plan. Okay, let's see here. I think for our cash flow part of it, here's our takeaway. I want to make sure. So our takeaway with this whole financial arrangement section right here, before we take a break, is review your current systems. What are your current internal financial policies? That's internal, not patient policies. What is it we've done? How healthy is our accounts receivable or unhealthy? And what is our plan? What's our plan now when we start back to work, knowing we have to be flexible and graceful with our patients? And also, what are we going to do down the road in 3 to 6 months to improve that cash flow? So let's take a break here. I'd love some more chats to come through with that. I have it's about 45, it's 1:45 there. We're gonna take a 20-minute break, and then we're gonna come back and finish. So I would like you back in the Zoom webinar at, that would be 2 after. Well, let's just call it straight up 2 o'clock your time, Central Standard Time, 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So let's just take our 18 to 20 minutes. We'll give you a tone a few minutes in advance to get you ready for it. So get caffeine on our last push through for our Friday afternoon. Again, please send your chats for the financial arrangements, and I'll be sure and look at those during the break and answer that for you. So see you in about 18 minutes. Thanks.